Hey everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Leah from Urban 20 Something, and I am very excited, a little bit fangirling myself, to be here interviewing Farnoosh Torabi today. She is so amazing, and she has a lot of amazing things to share with us. So we're very, very lucky to have her. I'm going to introduce her really quick, and then I'm going to ask her a couple questions about her podcast and, of course, side hustling, because that's my favorite thing. And then she's going to have some things to share with us as well. So if any of you watching live just could let me know that you all can hear us well, I'd appreciate that. But we are just going to get going. So her professional introduction, Farnoosh Torabi is one of America's leading personal finance authorities. She is hooked on helping Americans live their richest, happiest lives. Millions have tuned into Farnoosh's award-winning podcast, So Money, which made its debut in January of 2015, 4 years, congratulations. On the show, she interviews leading experts, authors, influencers, and the show has become one of the most wildly popular podcasts out there, especially to millennials, entrepreneurs, and young women. And just on a personal level, some of you that have followed me for a while know that I listened to Farnoosh's podcast before I even started my business, and I listened to it daily as I started it, built it, and then eventually made it my full-time job. So she has made a huge influence in mine and so many others' lives. So thanks for being here, Farnoosh.
I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we've really come full circle a couple of times, right? Between you being a listener to the show, then coming on the show a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe just once. Or I feel like
I was on a couple times.
Yeah. And now I get to be on your Facebook Live. So just goes to show you, the world is very big, but also can be very small. As long as you just reach out and be your authentic self. I know that was your approach. You didn't try to sell me anything. You were just a fan, and your note really was sweet and thoughtful. And sometimes it's all it takes. Like, people don't believe that you can actually just reach out to people and they'll respond to you. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all just human. So if
Exactly. For sure.
Awesome. Well, Farnoosh, you have one of the most popular podcasts out there. You've built such an incredible following and movement and platform, and you've done it in 4 years, which is relatively short considering the growth that you have. And I know that there's probably so much that's gone behind it, and you probably have as many seemingly, obstacles and as many as wins. But if you could kind of narrow it down to 3 things that you feel like have really played a role in your growth and the brand you've built, I'm sure people would love to hear that.
Sure, that's a really good question. So the podcast was definitely one of those moves that, and that's one of the 3. I think I feel like I started the podcast in 2015, more as a way to, really try to do something new and different with my platform. Up until that point, I was mainly doing TV and videos and books and writing and speaking, but podcast was sort of it was not so new. We had been doing podcasts many, many years ago, but it didn't really take off because the iTunes platform wasn't born yet. And so podcasts didn't really have the stickiness that they do now. It was a little bit more cumbersome. You had to download them, and then it was a whole thing. So it didn't quite take off in, the mid 2000s, when I remember actually doing a podcast for a website that I worked for at the time called thestreet.com. And so fast forward to 2015, I'm like, this is really where a lot of the audience is going. And so let's try it out. And I did. And fast forward, now 4 years, like you mentioned, it's been one of the biggest and best moves I've made for my brand, helped me to get out there more, and also to be out there more in a way that I can control. Right. So often when I've been working on my brand and my business, it's always in partnership with other bigger entities that I can kind of leverage. Right. So I had a video series for Yahoo. I published books with publishers. And so very grateful for those partnerships. But to some extent, your creative license kind of has its, you have parameters around your creativity. And with the podcast, this was kind of one of the first times in my career that I felt I had complete creative authority, which really excited me. And I felt like it came in my life at the right time, because I had done a lot of learning up until that point. I had done a lot of failing, and I had seen what success looks like. I'd seen what failure looks like. And so I could apply all of those things to growing the podcast. And I think that is also a benefit to starting it when I did. But going backwards even, I'd say two other things that really helped to build and establish my brand and kind of get me out there more. Books, for sure. One of my first book, You're So Money, came out during the recession of 2008, which was, in some ways a terrible time to be trying to like sell a product, a book, whatever you were trying to sell. People were like not having it, like I'm just trying to make ends meet. But also people were just trying to make ends meet. And so financial advice was hot and very much in demand. And so I sort of arrived to the scene, during a very important time in our history. And that really helped to get me out there more. The book did fine, but I think that more than the book, it was about becoming an authority at that time period because of the book, which then led to other kinds of work. And then thirdly, I'd say that, I'm very proud of the last 4 years, going on 4 years. I've had a long partnership with Chase. And for me, that has been a real point of pride because, it's one of those things where I feel very grateful. I feel very special to have been selected by them to work with them as in an ambassador role, as a financial expert, to go out there and talk with the Chase platform, which is huge, to like millions of people about financial health and everything that goes along with that. They've been a huge supporter of my work. And so that partnership has been truly exceptional. And I think I'm also just, I pinch myself thinking like it's been almost 4 years that we've been working together. We work together in a lot of capacities, videos, they sponsor my podcast, we do events, we do a lot of social media. And for me, it's like a great way to practice what I love to do, which is, spread the good word about money via like such an enormous and established vehicle like Chase. It's been really fun.
Yeah. Amazing. That was awesome to hear. But one of the things I think that is so valuable about what you said, and one of the things I talk to my clients a lot about, is just the importance of, having something that is your own. And I think when I work with a lot of people that start side hustles, and a lot of times they want to start blogs, and it gets really tempting to do things like affiliate marketing because it seems very passive, but there's not really anything about your brand or your position involved in that if you're like just selling for someone else. So I love how you really stay true to yourself and everything you've done. And you found that through a podcast, and even with a partnership with a corporation. Partnerships can be good if they're in alignment with you and the message you want to spread. So it's very, inspiring how much you've just really stuck with your mission. And I kind of want to ask a follow-up question to that really quick, which is, with podcasting and just sort of media platforms in general now, there's so many things. There's social media, there's blogging, there's emails, there's everything. And I know that a lot of times people feel this excitement about doing one or many of them, and then a paralysis, and then maybe they don't move forward or they don't know how to choose. And you might still deal with some of that now as you're always growing, but how did you say like, okay, I'm not going to just write books, or I'm not just going to speak, I'm going to do this podcast? And I guess you kind of answered that question. My more question would be, what would you say to someone now who's considering starting a podcast, but also kind of has other interests in other mediums, and who's podcasting really right for?
That's a really good question. I mean, Leah, you probably could answer this too, because you have a lot of interests, and I feel like you're growing your business in a very thoughtful, strategic way. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important to really be clear on what your goals are for the year and for the long run. For me, I'll tell you the reason I went to podcasting as opposed to a YouTube channel. I was considering a lot of things. I was like, do I do the YouTube thing? Do I, just spend all my time on Facebook? Do I do another book? Do I do a podcast? And I think all of those things had their own merits. But I think that for me, the questions that I wanted answered, like I really wanted to do something that allowed me to connect with my audience in a way that was really meaningful, truly. And what does that mean, right? I wanted to cover money in a way that hadn't been covered before, whether it was ways that I'd seen out there in the world, or even things that I'd already done. So I felt like I'd already done the video thing. For 3 years working with Yahoo. We had such a fun show that we did called Financially Fit, which grew and grew and grew over the years, and really exciting. And I felt like I could like rest my hat on that and like move. I wanted to move on, and more though, I wanted to move on in a direction that I felt like I wanted to have deeper conversations about money. So that was something that I really craved. And then I also was a mom for the first time in my life. And literally, 6 months, no, not even, like 3 months into motherhood, I got this idea to do a podcast. And it really resonated with me because I felt as though in terms of the time commitment and also the logistical commitment, it was really perfect for a parent who worked from home. And I didn't want to necessarily like put on makeup and do my hair every day for a video. And I wanted to be able to, of course, I outsource a lot of the editing and the technicals, but if I had to do it myself, it was something that I could do, and I can do, some light podcast editing to save my butt if for some reason my outsourcing doesn't work out, but video would be really difficult for me and really time consuming. So I kept going back to podcasting. And then I also was like really excited by the fact that podcasting, now this was before 2015, I got the idea for podcasting. I launched in January of 2015. So at the time, there were, Serial was out there. There's a lot of buzz around podcasting, but I could see the growth. I could see that we hadn't quite reached a saturation point. And so that's why I also I didn't want to do a blog. I felt like, to do a blog, it's not even about your content. It's about the marketing. It's like how many millions and millions and millions of blogs. There's like this many podcasts, even though we feel now like, I'm going to start another podcast. Like it's like so hard to get out there, but relative to other kinds of media, it's still very new and fresh and small. And so there were a lot of like paths that were leading me to doing the podcast, but I think I just had to be really honest with what I was capable of doing at that time, and also where I felt like I could be my most authentic self on a consistent basis too. Don't forget, building a brand takes consistent effort. I could probably, start the video thing, but could I keep up with it? I didn't feel as confident in my ability to keep up with something that was, to me, I mean, maybe someone else would disagree, but to me, like doing a video the way that I wanted to do it, well edited, well produced, would be far more time consuming, laborious, and all the things, and more likely that I would experience fatigue. But podcasting, I felt like this is totally my wheelhouse. I went to journalism school, I love interviewing people. And finally, as you're thinking about what medium to pursue, think about doing something where it's sort of like the content keeps on giving. So podcasting, right? I get transcripts. Those become articles. So I technically have a blog for this podcast, right? And also it's a great asset for media to then cover the podcast. When you have a transcript, it's much easier for like a reporter to go through your interview and pick out quotes. And I've gotten so much press for the show, I think thanks to the fact that I make it so accessible via the transcripts.
That's all such good advice. And first of all, I love that you just openly shared that part of it was that I think you were pregnant, or had you just had your kid?
I was just like emerging from maternity leave. And I went to a conference as like kind of like my coming out party, my first like work party after a few months of being at home. And, I work from home. So I guess like just parenting full time, I was like really eager to get out there again. And I had actually published a book before my son was born. So I kind of had bookended this pregnancy with like a book and a podcast. And for whatever reason, I was really eager to kind of get out there and make a big impact again. But, just sort of trying to like survey the market a little bit. And at this conference was actually when I started to really notice a lot of movement towards podcasting, and didn't see a lot of women in the space, didn't see anybody like me in the space, didn't see anybody doing money in the way that I was doing it in the space. And that's, again, another reason why I was really excited to pursue it, because I felt like I was bringing something new to the world, right? That I wasn't just like repeating a lot of what had already been out there.
Yeah, and I think that that's what people love about your podcast. But yeah, just saying, you know, being so open about that. A lot of times people come to me and they're like, I have this big vision. I want to start this big, you know, movement. And then they get really quiet and they're like, and also I want to make a lot of money. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to pretend that there's not
don't be shy about that. You know?
Yeah, right.
Money is important. And especially like women, a lot of women are watching, like, don't forget that, you know, what you put out has value and you deserve to make money for that. And that is absolutely one of the things that motivates me. And that, okay, so let's just talk about that for a second, because as I was sort of learning about podcasting, I remember like going to this, my friend had like a party to celebrate her business. She's in PR. And one of the guests there was a very famous podcaster. And he was telling me his numbers. And I was like, 6 figures. And I don't think he was a household name. His podcast was good, but was it exceptional? I don't know. Like, but he knew how to market it. He knew how to do good content. And he was also like kind of one of the first, like the OGs of podcasting. And I was like, okay, this is proof positive for me. Like, I'm going to take this and I'm not going to, I'm not going to fool myself. And I'm thinking like, I'm going to make money overnight, but I definitely know there's money to be made. And I'm going to keep that in mind as I build this show.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think that's
great. I mean, it's no secret, I'm the breadwinner in my family. Like, now I'm a mom too. And as parents know, like, you don't work for free when you become a parent. You know, your time is valuable. You want to do things that have an ROI. So yeah, I was profitable by month 8.
Month 8. Okay, so that's so great to share, because I also think one of the things about your podcast, just from the outside looking in, that has helped it grow so much is exactly what you just said. You have been so consistent. You put out 5 episodes a week, right? You have for a year.
Well, now so I went from 7 days a week to 5 days a week. Now I'm at 3 days a week, sometimes 4, depending on, we have occasionally bonus episodes. But yeah, it was, I would do it again though in that way. And I'll tell you why I wanted to do 7 days per week. I just felt like, one, it was a great way to differentiate. There's like not a lot of podcasts that do that. And it's a great way to kind of get the media like a little like curious about your show. Like, what is this like, to learn also about your behind the scenes. Like, how is this woman who has a baby doing 7 days a week from her house? Like, what is she on? And that did lead to
I want what she's having.
Yeah, like, what are you taking? We need to be on this. Is it legal? And I think that I wanted to do it so often because that it was, first of all, you fail faster that way. Like, you learn your mistakes.
You learn quick.
And I think also it allowed me to achieve milestones very quickly. Like, I could go out within a month and say 100,000 downloads.
Right.
Within the first year, 1 million downloads. Now, that's not like every episode's getting a million listens, or it's spread over many episodes, but no one needs to know that, right? I'm just saying, like, look at me, I'm so crazy. I have all these, and I have actually seen that as I've reduced the volume, the downloads have not dropped. They've continued to grow. And I think that's part of, that's human nature. Like, people cannot listen to every episode, right? The best is 1 episode a week, actually. But I think it's harder to start today with 1 episode a week and grow. Probably better to start with a lot of content, because then also people get a sense of like what they're in for, and they're more likely to subscribe. And then as you adjust the volume and the cadence of the show, they're more likely to like listen to every single show after that. People were saying, like, I just can't listen to everything Farnoosh. So I felt like a lot of the episodes were going to waste anyway. But it was great in terms of the beginning, like just getting a lot of momentum.
Right. That's such good advice for anyone listening out there. If you're in the earlier stages of whatever you're doing, your blog, your social media, whatever, and you feel like you're putting things out there and no one's really seeing. I felt like that when I started blogging. I felt like no one really read it. And now when people, especially when they invest
They'll go back.
in me, yeah, like when they do a more expensive program, they want to do their research, which makes sense. And it's really nice that they like will tell me I just binged on like everything you've ever, and so I'm sure the same happens with you when people really work on a higher level with you, you have that sort of resume. So if it doesn't feel like it's getting heard or seen or whatever at first, just know it's not a waste of time. Okay, I want to ask one more sort of different question, and then I want to leave any time for you to share anything extra, but kind of touching on, you do a lot of work on being the female breadwinner, but just in general, since you have kind of taken a lot of risks and, in New York, I don't think it's different to be a female breadwinner, but you have listeners from all over the United States. And so maybe there was some scariness talking about that. What do you do when you put something out there that isn't well received? How do you move past the fear of what other people will think? I know that holds so many people back.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you're being honest, you're being honest. And I think that is just what you have to believe will ground you as you face a negativity, different opinions. Look, I think that a good test of whether what you're putting out in the world is a good idea is when there's debate, right? I put out a book called When She Makes More about breadwinners, and everybody was like applauding me and saying, yep, got it. We will move on very quickly. And it's like, that to me is not success, right? I want there to be growth. And in order for there to be growth, there has to be back and forth. There has to be a difference of opinions. There has to be debate. And, I won't respond to people who are disrespectful, rude. Right. Nobody should, right? But if you're coming at me with like a really interesting point of view that counters what I have presented, let's talk about it. Like that was the whole point. And, by no means was I saying like, this is the end all book. I went out there with the book When She Makes More with the intention that I wanted to just kind of break the ice because nobody, as far as I could tell, was really diving deep into these critical issues surrounding couples where there was this income imbalance, particularly with the female making more. It was like total taboo. I mean, money's already a taboo topic, and you add it to this layer of women making more. It's like zip, So I accepted that there was going to be from the get-go some resistance, and there certainly was. And of course, I felt like misunderstood. Well, you didn't read the book, and it's easy to kind of go and feel those ways. But ultimately, you have to take a step back and go, the book is making an impact. It's affecting people. And to this day, people are coming to me to talk about the book because it is one of those things that's just never going to go away. And maybe some of us didn't want to face the facts 4 years ago, but we're now learning more and more. There's more data out there to support the thesis, which is that when she makes more, relationships suffer. And I don't want that to happen. That's why I wrote the book. But a lot of people even took issue with that predicament. Like, well, the fact that you are even saying this is a step backwards. Like, let's just not say that because then that's making women feel bad. And I'm like, but I understand, but like, you can either live in reality or you can live in this.
You can lie to yourself.
Like, I want to be where you're at, but I honestly cannot because I have a duty to my audience to give them practical advice. But living on a cloud is not practical. Maybe in your relationship, things are going great. I want to interview you. I want to profile you. I mean, the book is full of positive examples of couples that are making it work and thriving despite this, like, this nuance. But so anyway, to answer your question, I think if you are worried or scared about putting something out there, trust that is a good sign.
Yeah.
That you're probably onto something. Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just putting out something probably somewhat generic or that
other people flat. People go, yeah, gotcha, agree, next. It's not going to create friction. You want something that does create that sense of friction in if you're already feeling like a little like butterflies in your stomach, saying something out loud, imagine you're not the only one, right? And people are going to really appreciate you for being that brave person to speak out and talk about it. And I often would disclaim when I was out there doing a lot of media around this that, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I do want to be that crazy person that's going to go out there and put this out on the table, at dinner parties. It's going to cause discomfort, but I think that's still a step in the right direction. I think that is progress, to be honest.
Right. I love that. That's so inspiring and such a good way to get out of your own head when you're thinking like, what are people going to think of me? It's not always about us.
It's not about me at all. I mean, it is. Yeah. I wrote it about like my life, and it was born out of my own feelings, but nobody can argue with your true feelings,
Right.
Like how you feel is how you feel.
Right.
To some extent, like if you're racist, no one there's just no, there's no going forward there. But like, I think if you're telling people that how maybe a circumstance in your relationship made you feel emotionally, even though maybe it's not politically correct, like men would say to me, I feel emasculated when I make less. Should we just
dismiss that, right?
Or dump him because he feels that way? I disagree. Others may not, but that's where a good debate can really happen.
Right. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing, Farnoosh. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I would just love to hear anything else that you want to share about your podcasting or your podcast or podcasting in general, because as also, I have so many side hustlers that listen, and I get a lot of messages asking about podcasting, and I have nothing to tell them because
well, I have a side hustle. Yeah. So last year I launched a very small hands-on group coaching program called the So Money Podcast Accelerator. A lot of people were coming up to me asking about my podcast. They were interested in launching theirs. And I felt like, okay, let's do something official. Let's put together a program that carries you through the birth of a podcast. Like, you want to start a podcast? Let's do it. So 12 weeks dedicated to helping you launch. Also, though, this time around, as we are now entering the next phase of this program, I'm opening it up to existing podcasters that have shows but feel like, you know what, I really want to do more with regards to growing the show, driving more traffic to the show, perhaps getting some press, getting some more interesting guests, or just kind of reformatting the show. I kind of want to step it up a notch, and I would love some guidance around that. So we also have a pro version of the So Money Podcast Accelerator. It's a mouthful, but I will send you the link. And if you want to put it in the page now, it's accelerator.somoneypodcast.com. And we're kicking off things again in February. The date is still fluid, but it's probably like the second week of February. It's a high touch program. So there's a lot of podcast programs out there that just a series of videos and it's like $200. And, they all have their value, but I think what's really valuable about our program is that you get tons of accountability. We have a Facebook group, we have group calls, we have very specific to-do lists every 2 weeks so that nobody falls off the wagon. And of course, we're here for you at any stage you're at with podcasting. So if you're interested, now's the time to sign on. We're signing on people this month.
Amazing. Well, I just put the link below this video, and I will put it in the bio afterward. But that sounds like an incredible opportunity for anyone that is interested in podcasting, and anyone that's watching this that has ever thought of this. There's no one that I could think of in the world better to learn podcasting than from you. So thank you for sharing this with us.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
When's your podcast coming?
What's that? When's my podcast coming? It's funny that you say that. I was just thinking the other day how when I started out, I had what I talked about earlier, where I wanted to do everything, and I wanted to do all these social media platforms and blogging and blah, blah, blah. And then last year, I feel like I really buckled down and honed in on just a couple of things and went all out in them. And it did really well. Focusing on a couple of things and being really consistent got me really far. And now I'm sort of like, I do kind of want to do something new again now that I've gotten to like that next level of growth. Yeah. So we'll see what it is.
Maybe to be determined. I like the pacing though, don't go for the shiny objects.
Yeah.
You know, that when you talked earlier about like, do I do the affiliate thing? Do I, I mean, it just really also depends on where you are at the stage of your business and what your goals are. Sometimes I'll do a little affiliate stuff, but it's not my bread and butter. And it's certainly not what I'm building my brand off of,
Right. Well, and I think, one of the things we all should remember, and that helped me get through that point, because when you're creative, you want to do all the things. It's just a temporary time where you really have to focus on a couple things. It's not forever. So saying no to things, I know it can be hard, but it's just a temporary no. It's just a phase where you're focusing on other things. And as you expand and as you build, then you can grow to other things too. So if anyone else that's watching this feeling like they want to try all these different things, just be patient, because it totally pays off to get really good at a couple of things first. Like my thing all last year was email marketing, and now I know everything. I shouldn't say that's
right. Become a genius in a few things.
Right.
100%, as opposed to just mediocre in 20 things. Be like excellent in 1 or 2 things.
Exactly.
And that is a good long game.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Farnoosh.
You're welcome.
It was so great to hear from you. If anyone watching this has any questions about her program, you can reach out to me or her. And no matter what, you all should download and subscribe to her podcast. It will literally change your life. It changed mine, and I know so many oothers. So thanks for joining us, Farnoosh, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Leah. Bye.
Bye.